Good morning and welcome to my show. I'm your host, Danny Graham. I both invite you and encourage you to walk with me on the road to wisdom. Let's walk. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is a beautiful Thursday morning here in the state of South Carolina. It is September the 28th, and I'm your host, Danny Graham, and this is my show, The Road to Wisdom. Yesterday, if you didn't catch the show, I did a word. It's called abomination, and I believe I stepped on some toes. It wasn't my intent, but I feel like I have to give each word that I put on my list the utmost attention and come at it and deliver it the way that I was led to believe with my research and what I believe God wants me to say about it. So, yesterday the word was abomination. Abomination. And the definition of abomination is a thing that causes disgust or hatred. A thing that causes disgust or hatred. Now, as you can see, today's word right here and below, boom, is anger. Anger is the word of the day. And boy, we've all been angry. We've all been angry in our lives. We're all going to be angry last week, angry today, angry tomorrow. In the future, there's probably going to be some point in time where we're going to be angry. And we're going to sit down here and talk about and discuss anger. So, definition of anger. The definition of anger is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. I'll say that one more time. The definition of anger is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. The scripture comes from the book of James, the first chapter, the 20th verse, and it reads as follows. For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. I'll say it one more time. Book of James, first chapter, 20th verse, says, For man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God desires. Now, anger. We've all been angry, and we've all, at times, I bet you, um, wish sometimes when we're angry we could do things like this. And I'm going to play this for you. Bum, 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 bum. How many times have we said to people, hey, don't make me angry. You won't like me if I'm angry. Now, of course, that's fictitious. Incredible Hulk is a show that I watched when I was a little boy for years. The Hulk is one of my favorite TV shows. In fact, with the streaming service I have now, I can go back and watch that. And it was two of my favorite episodes ever on there. It's called The First and it's called Prometheus. The first is basically where David Banner goes to this town, always trying to cure himself, and he finds that there was a Hulk before him. But as you know, those who have the power of the Hulk, it is the Hulk doesn't hurt people because David is a gentle person. He's a nice person. He's a kind person. So he doesn't kill or hurt. But if someone has that power and they're mean, they're nasty, they're evil, then they will kill. And this first Hulk was mean and nasty as a human being. When he transformed to his version of the Hulk, he killed people. But the doctor that experimented on this in the first Hulk was able to cure him. So David found that, and he was able to recreate or synthesize the medication that was going to save him, and he wasn't able to do it because um, the guy that became the first Hulk transformed because while he knocked David out, he then got back into his machine and he became the Hulk again. This is one of the best scenes I've ever seen as the Incredible Hulk. Um, I want to share it with you. Dun, 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 dun. It's called The First. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, here it is right here. How many of us have seen something like that? Have been so hurt and distraught we couldn't get uh, what we needed or what we wanted, and you say, "God, I wish I could turn to the Hulk." I know I've said that so many times. You get into a situation, getting road rage, or just get to a situation at work, you can just feel your blood boiling. Like, boy, and I've said this before. If I was David Banner, I would have turned to the Hulk and destroyed that place. We use that as a figure of speech. Of course, you know we don't want to turn to the Hulk and destroy things, but sometimes we just use that as an example when that anger just balls up in us. That is anger personified right there. Where like anytime he gets hurt, anytime he has a bad dream, you just seen him certain things set him off and turn him to the Hulk. But the main thing that sets him off is anger, and then pain. But doing my research, that I found that there were several different, well, two different kind of angers in particular. There is sinful anger, and then there is righteous anger. I'm gonna give you an example of sinful anger. Cain and Abel, that is sinful anger. When basically God told Adam and Eve's sons, Cain and Abel, that he wanted a sacrifice. One brother was better with vegetables and growing things and crops. The other one was better with animals. Um, Abel was better with animals, and so when he gave God his sacrifice, and he presented the sacrifice to God, he gave God his best animals, the best sheep, the best bull, the best whatever particular animal as a sacrifice, and God was pleased. Well, Cain didn't do that. He he thought God would be satisfied um, with his offering, but God wasn't, and God told him his displeasure. So what did Cain do? Cain went back, got mad, and killed Abel. And then God asked, "What have you done?" He said, "I can hear Cain blood crying from the ground." He got so angry with Abel because of that, and then what it caused him to do is murder his own brother. That is sinful anger. Now, righteous anger is basically, the definition of righteous anger is being motivated by a perception of injustice or other profound moral lapses. Again, righteous anger is motivated by a perception of injustice or other profound moral lapses. And an example of righteous anger is God giving the plagues to Pharaoh. God sent Moses and Aaron there to tell Pharaoh, "Look, let my people go. You have been treating them so bad, so long, keeping them in bondage, whipping them, doing this kind of stuff. Let my people go." Pharaoh would not do it. God became angry, so he sent not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven, not eight, not nine, but 10 plagues to try and persuade and change Pharaoh's mind. It took all 10 of those plagues for Pharaoh to finally get the message. But that is an example of righteous anger. Righteous anger, more or less, is when you do something because you see such an injustice, you see something done so wrong that it becomes angry and it moves you to action. That is an anger that's acceptable by God. This sinful anger is not like that. Any kind of anger that's going to lead you to hurt somebody, lie on somebody, plot and try to um, hurt somebody as far as their reputation, as far as their physical life, as far as their family, as far as anything that is going to produce something that comes from a spirit or a place of evil. God is not going to, he does not approve of that. That is sinful anger. But you see, in my profession, let's see, we go to a house and we see that the children at the house or a person at the house is not being properly treated, not being properly fed. The house is not fit to live in, or an abuser is beating his wife, or an abuser is beating her husband, or children are being abused, or something like that. And we go in there and we see that and we become angry, and then we use whatever powers we have as law enforcement to make sure that those kids or that woman or that man gets to somewhere safe, then and if that causes us anger, that is an example of righteous anger. So we can't. It's every day in my profession, in some shape, form, or fashion. And then also too is sinful anger. Also in my profession too. Sometimes there's this phrase called POP, and that's pissing off the police. And I've seen officers do it. Earlier in my career, I did it. I go to a call, or I go to a house, or I make a traffic stop, and then the individual gets a smart. I'm like, oh, you want to get smart, and then they may get a ticket or two that they necessarily probably wouldn't have got had they come at the officer in the right way, or not be such a pain, or not do this and not do that. I'm not saying it's always right, but sometimes, a lot of times, and I've said this in the past, attitude when it comes to law enforcement, sometimes people attitude or a good attitude or a bad attitude. I give you an example of both. A good attitude most times gets you a warning ticket. Warning ticket or gives you a second chance, get you a stern talking to. But a bad attitude a lot of times will get you a ticket. In some cases, it can get you a ride in the back of the car going to the detention center. And there's an unwritten rule. Yeah, it's an unwritten rule. Basically, if you talk a lot of junk to the individual on the side of the road or talk stern or harsh to them, you usually don't give them a ticket. But then if you give them a ticket, then you don't talk the junk. You don't do both. You don't give them a ticket and talk junk. Some officers do. But the unwritten rule is, look, if I'm going to talk to you, talk a little junk, be a little stern, be a little harsh, I'm going to give you the warning ticket. But then if you coming at us all crazy and doing whatever you want to do and just acting crazy and being belligerent, all that kind of stuff, then no. You're going to go ahead and write a ticket, probably make the arrest, whatever the case may be, going about the business. But that's where I was taught. Now, there are new breed of officers now that may do both. But the way I was taught, my FTO, field training officer, always taught me, Danny, you do one or the other. You don't do both. Now, I guess there are some exceptions to the rule, but one thing in this particular profession, you have to keep your anger in check, because the minute you get angry and lose control, that's when you end up on the 6 o'clock news. A lot of officers have end up on the 6 o'clock news. You got little things called body cams, and they don't stop recording. Once you cut them on, especially in the cars and stuff, and then if they do stop recording, you better have a good reason why they stop recording, because then it's going to appear that you're hiding something. So, anger. It is something that is a part of human nature. It's a human emotion. Sometimes it can be easily triggered. Sometimes people are quick to anger more so than others are. One of the things that I pray for every morning is let me be slow to anger. Slow to anger, because when you make a knee-jerk reaction, when you do something in anger, a lot of times you're going to mess it up. A lot of times you're going to do something more harsher than you would when you're under control, when you get time to process the mistake or process the situation. And a lot of times that's when you're going to show compassion, and then a lot of times you'll be like, look, it's a better way to do this. There is a saying that anger is like a pot of boiling water. Now, when the water is boiling and you look at it, you can't see your reflection. The only way you can see your reflection is when the water is calm. When the water is calm, you can see your reflection. You can look at it. You can see things more clearly. While the water is bubbling up and stuff, you can't see nothing. All you can see is the water bubbling up. You know that it's hot. You touch it there, it's going to burn you. That's the same thing with anger. When you calm, when your emotions are calm, and you have a chance to just sit back and relax and mull over in your head, you see things more clearly. But when you hot and mad and your temperature is boiling and your emotions is boiling, your anger is boiling, you're not going to see clearly, and that's when you're going to make a mistake. Whenever you're making a decision, you have to do it in a mindset that's calm, that's rational. You got to put yourself in the other person's shoes and say, look, if it was me, would I have done this? Can I see the other person's point of view? Sometimes you're going to say yes. Sometimes you're going to say no. And sometimes when we make mistakes, there are consequences. Sometimes there aren't consequences. Sometimes the right thing to do is to show the individual mercy. But sometimes the right thing to do is to say, look, I know you didn't mean to do it. I forgive you, but you're going to have to do ABC 1, 2, 3. Sometimes people don't understand that and always wants mercy. And it's human nature to always want mercy. But sometimes in order to learn, and like I told you, God does two things. I'm not comparing myself with God, but God does two things when he puts us through times of trouble. He makes times hard. When he makes situations hard and we're going through it, he does that for two reasons. The two T's, what I call them, to teach and to test. He's going to test us to see whether or not we are committed to him, and that whenever times are hard, we have the same energy to call and praise him that we do when times aren't hard. And he's going to teach us, look, if I do this, or the reason why I'm doing this, or the lesson I'm going to learn from this is because if I do this right here and I hold on, or if I do that right there and I hold on and I pray and I this and that, just like Job. Job went through it. Lost all of his possessions, lost his animals, lost his family, lost his wife, lost his health, but God kept him in his folds. But Job had to go through it. And when Job goes through it, he still praised God. He still had that same energy going through all that hardship, all that stuff that Satan was throwing at him. And what he learned is that if he has faith in God and he holds on, God's going to get him through it. So, just to say, don't make a decision in anger. You make a decision in anger, you're usually going to mess up. Now, the book of Matthew says that, Matthew, the 5th chapter, 21st to 22nd verse says, anger focused on a person is sinful. If you are angry with your brother, you will be subject to judgment. If you are angry with your brother, you will be subject to judgment. Now, what I take from that is that a lot of people, I was in a conversation last night and they were saying on the stream that their family members, their own blood, I guess did something, or they're in a particular situation now where they don't talk to each other. And I've been in that particular situation because I've told y'all about my own brother. But I'm of the mindset that if you are spiritual, if you are saved like I am now, that you have an obligation to try to make that right. And if you got animosity in your heart for your own brother, I don't see how you can proclaim to be a Christian if you didn't try to fix that, or you didn't try to ask for forgiveness, or try to ask God for a way back, or try to ask God to put you in a position where you can fix that before the individual dies. Because then it's not too late for your salvation if the individual dies, but it's too late for you and the individual to make it right. And I don't think that I would want to know I had an opportunity to fix it with my loved one and I didn't do it. Now, everybody got to come to that realization themselves. But anger a lot of times can cloud your judgment, like I said. Anger is just like that boiling pot of water on the stove. You're not going to see clearly. And the more heat that you put on it, the more the water's going to boil until eventually it's going to evaporate. And I think a lot of times in relationships, the boiling water evaporates, and then there seems to be no way to ever fix it. But what you got to do is you got to find another source of water, put it back in the pot, and then slowly let the temperature drop till it's finally off. And that temperature, that heat, is time. Time, there's a saying, time heals all wounds. For some people, it takes longer to heal, I guess, than others. But I encourage anybody that has a loved one, no matter how hard-headed, no matter how evil, no matter how just despicable that person is, I strongly believe that you can like a loved one. I mean, love a loved one, but not like them. For years, I loved my brother, but I didn't like him. And I told him that. And he said, I know. I know. He told me one time, I know you didn't like me much. I didn't. Could not stand him. When I looked at him, I wanted to hurt him. But when I became saved, that anger that I had in my heart for him, that anger that I had for all that stuff, all those years missed, went away. Now I'm saying your relationship with God is different than other people's relationship with God. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what your issue. I don't know what your problem. I don't know what your tribulation is. I don't know what cross you're bearing. But the cross I was bearing in my immediate family was he and I didn't get along. We used to get along. We used to be two peas in a pod. But he went one way in life. I went one way in life. It made me angry how things he did, decisions he made. But that anger dissipated. It went away. Time was able to make the temperature on that boiling pot of water I keep referring to on the stove finally turned down till it finally went off. It went off April 21st, 2023. The stove with the boiling pot of water finally was turned off, and I could look down in the water and see my reflection and was calm. So that's what you got to do. Am I saying it's easy? Am I saying that it's not going to be hard? Is it going to be a slow process maybe? Yes, but you got to actually start walking towards that destination. You got to start actually walking towards not being angry. You can't run from it, or you can't walk at the same pace. You got to outwalk it. If you walk at the same pace as anger, you walking and anger walking. You're at the same pace. You look at it, you can see it. You got to be able to outwalk it, or either it walks so far ahead of you that you can't see it. You got to do one or the other. Once you can't see anger anymore, then that's when things get fixed. But as long as you can see anger looking at it when you're walking, it's not going to get fixed. So, I've read also in the Bible, there are a few times when Jesus became angry. One time he got angry in the temple. I think people were gambling or doing something they shouldn't have been doing in the temple. And Jesus came in there and he pretty much tore it up. Physically, just took chairs and started bashing stuff and running people out of the temple and doing stuff. So Jesus became angry when people did things to people that was unrighteous or evil and stuff. Jesus wept, and when he was weeping, he was angry. He was mad how these people were getting treated because he had compassion. He had a love for mankind that has not ever been matched ever again. So, he has to have a love for mankind when he sacrificed himself. God sacrificed him. He allowed himself to be put on the cross and crucified and die for our sins. But Jesus didn't want to do that. He had reservations. He was fearful, but he knew it was something he had to do. He had showed courage. He showed determination. He showed perseverance as he allowed himself to be crucified on the cross. But there were times in the Bible, I think the number I read was 5 specific times in the Bible where Jesus was angry. Also, I love this word because I love this particular fact. Anger is mentioned in the Bible over 200 times. Didn't know that till I looked it up yesterday. Another word I think was important. Yesterday, abomination, I told you, was mentioned in the Bible 139 times. The word anger, according to my research, was used in the Bible over 200 times. And of course, as we know, there's 66 books in the Bible, so you do the math. It is used more than double the books in the Bible. So to me, that makes me feel that is a very important word used that many times. So, having said that, those are my 2 cents. I definitely hope that you get something from this. We all be angry from time to time. That's just an emotion, a human emotion that's not going away any kind of way. It's not going away anytime soon. So we just got to make sure when we're angry that we allow that pot, rear the pot. And time is the heat, the temperature, the heat source. You got to make sure that we let time slowly turn that pot off. So instead of the boiling water, which is not clear and you can't see clearly through, get down to being turned off and the water gets calm and you're able to look down and see your reflection and think more clearly and see things more clearly. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to end with the quote of the day, and the quote about anger is, anger doesn't solve anything. It builds nothing, but it can destroy everything. Let me say that one more time. Anger doesn't solve anything. It builds nothing, but it can destroy everything. If this is your first time ever seeing me on this channel, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe. I'm going to ask you to please hit the notification bell. I'm going to ask you to please give me a thumbs up. I'm going to ask you to also please leave me a comment. And last but not least, watch my video from the start to the finish each time that you click on it. I definitely appreciate you being here. I hope that I see you tomorrow. I'll be back with another word. And until then, you have a safe day. You be productive. And I love you. And let's get ready to keep walking on this road to wisdom. Have a good day.